Hey there, fellow Wargamers, it's your man, it's a Sentinel from across the tabletop, and we've got an update on an RTT that we went to in Hertfordshire. It was at Toys Destruction, or Toys Destruction, I think it was. Amazing venue, amazing event, train was amazing, guys were brilliant. Parking was a little bit expensive, so please guys, if you're going to do an RTT, do it on a Sunday, as it's, it was £12 for parking, and on a Sunday it's like £4, so... And yes, there is other places to park for cheaper for the walking distance. So there is other options. But of course, if you want to get to the closest to there and carry your models as comfortable as possible, then yeah, it's quite expensive in the parking aspect of it. The good points, train was amazing, very colourful. Bad points was the parking. The missions pack was Abandoned Sanctuary for the first mission, and then it was... recover the relics. So we had a hammer and anvil. So we had a Dawn of War, hammer of anvil, and then a vanguard, which was data salvage, which was really nice because you got all three table quarter, sort of all three gameplays. But obviously looking back at it now and looking at the mission packs, which I should have really identified before going and before submitting my list, is all three of those are very difficult missions in a general senses. So Abandoned Sanctuary, no deep strikes in turn one, no advance, no forward deploying, no secondaries that allow you to move into the mission, into the middle. So it's a very much a speed orientated mission and angles, and the terrain doesn't allow for very many angles for that leap forward to push into the middle. So I was hindered against Clement's Unari, and he'd just won a GT previously, so he came in there with a lot of confidence and a lot of skill. And an amazing player. He went first. He won overall with 83 to 50, absolutely dominating the primaries and the secondaries in his game. Well, he dominated the primary and his secondaries. I didn't score very well on the primary at all. He went first, was able to tag with my unit on the objective, my back objective, in turn one with a 17-inch move with Howling Banshees, jumping out of a Wave Serpent, advancing with an Auto 6, charging with an Auto 6 with the Fates of Fates Weaver's dice. So yeah, well done to Clem for that win. Put me on the back foot. There was 30 odd players on the books, 28 turned up. So that meant there would be like 5 undefeated players going into round 3, which meant that if you don't win your first matchup, it's very difficult to hit the top 5 or even make podium. So I'd already knew by losing my first game, I wasn't going to do well at all within the RTT in the rankings. What secondaries did I take? So I built my list to do Behind Enemy Lines, Codex Warfare, and then a third one. And in the third one, I took Retrieve. In this one, I took Retrieve Data. I should have realised with the Howling Banshees and the Striking Hawks. That's the Striking Banshees. The Striking Scorpions. We've got the Howling Banshees and Swooping Hawks. I should have realised with Swooping Hawks it was going to be very difficult. As they move forward, they shoot and then they teleport away, and they can redeploy in the movement phase anywhere they want, which means he just jumps forward and then screens a corner. And it's very difficult to get into that corner at a quarter to do data. My units were misplayed, so I couldn't do data turn 1. Well, I did do it turn 1, sorry. I didn't do it turn 2 because I'd lost a unit that was supposed to be doing it. So I made some massive mistakes in this game against Clem. Not really understanding his army to its full capacity. Not really understanding the terrain packs because it meant that my reserve units couldn't get the angles they wanted, and then misplaying some of my priority targets with the Incarn. So because he was jumping around every time I killed something. Clem played a massive, amazing game. He took Behind Enemy Lines, Warp Ritual, and Retrieve Data. He did really, really well, 15, 12, and 8, and then 30 out in primary. So I did knock a few points off him. Codex Warfare. Unfortunately, I only got 8 on the primary. That was the massive issue. Every time I went to try and put something in the middle, well, if I did attempt to try and put something in the middle, he would just eat me because it would mean that his 7-inch move, but he'd already put something in the middle. So it was just a very good trading game on his. He traded extremely well and did it very, very well to minimize my effectiveness on the table. Game 2, I went up against a very inexperienced guy called Ryan and his Necrons. He did take did take the Knight, the Silent King, and I want to say Zeris, something like that. So it wasn't this typical obsec everything. So it was a very interesting matchup because he brought 40 odd warriors, 40 odd warriors, 4 destroyers, 3 heavy destroyers, the Silent King, Zerios or something like that, Chronomancer, the assassin guy that can jump down when a unit comes from reserves and just assassinates them essentially. And that was pretty much it. Oh, we had some wraiths as well, and only a small unit of wraiths and a small unit of scarabs. And unfortunately, it just came down to experience because recover the relics is quite a large deployment zone because it's end to end. It didn't screen out from my drop pod. The drop pod came down and killed the 2 Menials from the Silent King because I was able to get an angle on him, with being the closest and not being able to be screened. And I was able to take out his threat against my vehicles. He put his destroyers in reserve, so again, no shooting threat from them against my gladiators, and they just cleared up the game essentially. I didn't have any shooting threats to deal with after that. He did have a Void Dragon, which came on and rolled really poorly on the mortal wounds with his gun and his psychic Catan powers onto my Leviathan. So I should have really lost the Leviathan. He failed the charge against the Leviathan as well. No, he made the charge, sorry, but when it came to the roll in the D3+3 or the damage rolls or something, he rolled really poorly. So the Leviathan actually survived when it shouldn't have against the Void Dragon, but it was just one of those. It was a great game though. The reduction in damage on it was massive. If it had gone into anything else without the reduction of damage, I think I lose my Leviathan. I lose anything else anyway that was there. The 14 wounds massively help, and the Invon kept him alive. He didn't ignore the Invon. He didn't use the stratagem for it, so that helped. We won that 98-39, and we should have gone 100, but I forgot to do raise the banner on an objective twice, which was annoying. So we took raise the banners on this one because I had the units to go on to no man's land and do that. Turn 1. We took Razor Banners, Behind Enemy Lines, and Codex Warfare. And again, Razor Banner was the only one that didn't max out. This was also kill units to a maximum of 3 to score the tertiary part of the primary. So I scored 45 on primary. I scored 15 on Codex. I scored 15 on Behind. And then I scored 13 on banners because for the first turn I forgot to put a banner up on one objective. On the second turn I forgot to put the banner up on that same objective that I forgot to do at turn 1, which meant that I lost out on 2 points for the game essentially. Unfortunately, that's the way it goes sometimes. Which would have put me at max then for 100 points, and he scored 39. He took treasures and ancient machinery, but without that pre-game move and obsec, it's quite hard to get onto the objective to control it to get your points. Without the scarabs moving super efficiently turn 1 and turn 2, he can't get onto the objectives and start doing the action, which then gives him the points. Because you have to select the 3, of course, on this one, recover the relic, you've got 2 really close to your opponent's deployment zone, 2 really close to yours, and your opponent is selecting them. So of course he's going to pick 2 closest to him and then 1 on your side. And the one I chose on his side, he didn't deploy anywhere near it. He deployed the opposite side. So it was just a mismatch of inexperience on his behalf. And, you know, he's learning. So good on him for turning up and learning on his game too. So I was quite happy I scored 98. But knowing that I still wasn't in the contention to score, to win, or even to come top 5. I went into my third game against a gentleman called Oliver and his Chaos Marines. He was running Chaos Marines, Death, World Eaters. I want to say World Eaters, not World Eaters. The other ones, Word Bearers. So it was Word Bearer list, and it was all close combat. So we had the 2 units of Possessed, quite large blocks. He had 2 units of 2 units of Possessed, 2 units of Warp Talons, 2 units of the Armigers, Warglaves, those ones, War Dogs. So there you go, 2 War Dogs with melters, chain swords, and all the upgrades. And then a Demon Prince with auto auto hit, auto wounding. So as long as he hit, he auto wound, which was unexpected with Nurgle. So he had Nurgle auto wounding on hits. It was just, and exploding sixes, which was just incredible in that sense, with rerolls as well. And he had an ability to change a armor save to a pass with a stratagem, which was really key, I think. And he also had a Lord Discordant. He went first. We deployed on the line. I put my units in no man's land, so if I go first, I can move forward and then take behind enemy lines with the infiltrators. So I took Codex Warfare behind and retrieved data. Although right at the beginning when we was picking him, I said to him I shouldn't really retrieve data because I should do this one, it'd be better. And I still picked data. I should have took no prisoners is what I said to him. Because he had around about 6 or 7 with an ability to bring one back, which then took him to 8. And if I kill everything, it's like 10. So I was like, I should have taken that one. But I thought I'll be greedy and take something that I score better on, and I didn't. So it's my own fault. And this one's a hold 2, hold 3, hold more. So this is really difficult. It preferences you going first over going second because you get to move on to the objectives to go in turn 1. And then the opponent either shoots you off them if you can, or you hide so he can't. And then he has to then move on to them, and then you get the counter to that, if that makes sense. So going first in Data Scribe with the terrain that we're using currently is huge. It just means that you have complete ball control because you move to the directions you want to be able to clear the enemy off them in your turn 2. That makes sense? Hopefully it does. So he went first. He went really aggressive. I mean, he advanced pretty much everything onto all the objectives. Shot me off the objectives that I was on, which was the 2 infiltrator units. He charged a unit of infiltrators with possessed and warp possessed, which allowed him then to be a couple of inches away from my deployment zone, which meant that I had to focus fire that possessed unit down in my turn 1. Otherwise, he's charging me in his turn 2 and then getting behind enemy lines. The drop pod he did leave a gap for. They came down, and again, they did nothing, unfortunately. The drop pod just did nothing in this game. I think I killed 1 model, and that was it. It was quite disappointing. I've got to admit, the Leviathan came to its own. I fired at... So he tagged one of the train pieces to shoot through at my Leviathan with one of his Knight's multi-melta shots, and I made a 5 pinbon, and then he rolled like a 5 on his damage plus a 2, so I took 6 wounds essentially. Didn't drop me down to my middle bracket, so again my Leviathan then was just healed and hit back really hard. So I moved up, tagged the terrain. I shot one of the dreadnoughts down with the Leviathan with its flat 3 damage auto cannons. I then put a few shots in by something else and dropped the other knight down to 4 wounds, or 4 or 5, knowing that when the Leviathan charged into it, it does flat 6, and I just needed 1 to go through out of 5, that I would just kill it, and it was amazing. I also killed an Obliterator as well with some split fire, and I wish I hadn't. I should have just focus fired something else, but hey-oh, because he just brought it back, and no prisoners would have been perfect then, being 5 wounds. I killed one of the knights turn 1 shooting. I charged another knight, killed that in combat with the Leviathan. I took out something like, out of the 16 possessed, I think it was, I took 15 out and kept 40, so kept 2 alive essentially. I then wiped out both Warp Talon units essentially turn 1. I left the Rubric Marines, which I probably should have. I should have done it the other way around because they were absolutely terrifying late game. The Obliterators were dropped down to 2, and I couldn't really target anything else. So his turn 2. So see, turn 1 I'd lost both of my infiltrator units. So turn 2 I gave him my land speeder. He took my land speeder out, which was upsetting after it tried to contest an objective and did nothing. It bounced. My Leviathan now was in a real critical position to be taken out. He ignored it with all his shooting because he doesn't have much hit combat. He took a gladiator. He charged a gladiator, didn't kill the gladiator, left that on 1 wound. Took out my Techmarine because I moved up with the Leviathan to take the objective back of him to try and stop him from scoring more, which didn't work. He still scored more essentially, so I wasn't able to move on to the objectives and contest enough. And He charged my Leviathan with the Lord Discordant. I overwatched, and oh my goodness, I rolled so many sixes for that auto cannon shot. It was ridiculous. And I was able to kill, and he rolled really poorly on his invons, and able to kill the Lord Discordant in Overwatch. He then charged the Demon Prince in. He charged the last two Possessed, and he charged the Flamer dudes, the Rubric Marines with Flamers in, and was able to drop it down to like 2 wounds on the Leviathan after it recovered, of course, a few from the Techmarine. It then swung back and did something like 6 damage to his Demon Prince. Didn't quite kill it, unfortunately, which was a bit unlucky. I should have probably gone for the Possessed just to help out, but I thought if I can kill the Demon Prince, he then can't go as fast into my deployment zone and tag more stuff. This was the closest matchup essentially, because we were by his turn 3 he had like 10 models left on the table, and the same with me. I had about 10 models left on the table on my, because scouts went in, was killed. The second unit of scouts came in to try to do data and failed, and then tried to do data again. So at this stage I think there was only like 10 units of him left, and then I had 2 gladiators left at this stage, turn 3, which was a Reaper and a Lancier, and all my characters were now dead by my turn 3. So yeah, it was a very it was just brutal and bloody. And once he'd actually killed all of my moving units going forward, which is what his army is designed to do, and I killed all his units coming forward, coming towards me, we were left with 1 wound on 1 wound left on his. He had 1. Yeah, he had 1 Rubric Marine left in turn 4. His turn 4, so 1 Rubric Marine left. Demon Prince were left on 1 wound because I wasn't able to kill it, which was upsetting. And he had 1 Possessed left. But I didn't have anything left either. I had a Reaper, a Lancier, scouts that were trying to do data in the back doing nothing. I had 3 suppressors left and a drop pod. So it was just absolutely brutal. And then I just couldn't at that point hold the objectives because it was his turn 4 and he just killed the suppressors with 1 Rubric Marine with a Flamer, Psychic, and a charge. My scouts were doing couldn't do anything at that point, make an impact on the game. He charged a Lancer with his last 2 Possessed, and the Demon Prince, which overwatched and killed the Demon Prince, and then his Possessed charged and tagged. And then the Gladiator Reaper were able to move around, but only hold 1 objective. And at that stage, I was holding, I only held 1 objective, and he charged the Lancer with his 2 Possessed, and I could kill it. So in my turn, turn 5, I think I scored the first time I scored points. Was it? No, I couldn't even score points in turn 5. So it was just one of those games where Oliver came out, pressed so hard and so fast that he pushed me off all the objectives. And when I went back onto the objectives to clear them, he then pushed again with his second wave and wiped us. We wiped each other out, but it was too late for me to make any real decent push forward. What I did notice, so that was the game. He won 73-47, a ridiculous amount of death. I think I had like 5 models and he had 4 models at the end of the game. So it was brutal. But he scored well enough in the first couple of turns to absolutely annihilate me. Don't get me wrong, Codex Warfare and Behind Enemy Lines are both maxed out on those. Retrieve, I got 1 and 1 on the primary. So it was just really tough to actually finish the game out on finish the tournament on high. So that left us at position like 16 out of the lot. I didn't even get top half of the meta of that tournament. And there is absolute changes to have to the list, which I will go through in another video. I just wanted to put that up today about how I did in the tournament. I want to answer some of the guys' questions about the combat side of life and why I haven't got any. And I want to answer some of the moving into the middle and not being able to contest the middle. And I get it. There isn't much contesting in the middle. So let's do another video about that, answer some of the questions, talk about the new changes. I've got a game tonight to practice the new change out. I've got the international team tournament to think about, which is the Team 1 event. and it'll be a similar sort of list that I built tonight for that one if it goes well tonight. And I'll let you know, all guys know soon. I'll do another video, and we'll catch you later. Take care, and bye bye.